Well, ladies and gentlemen, in the biggest news since Coach Kalen DeBoer was announced as the next head coach at the University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide have gotten a monumental win on the recruiting trail for none other than top 10 player in all of high school football, wide receiver Ryan Williams. Today, we need to talk about why this is such a big win, but before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I've got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited that Ryan Williams chose to roll with the Tide? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. As always, we're going to start off with the obvious. Who is Ryan Williams? Well, as I alluded to in the intro, he is a top 10 player in the class of 2024. When we really dive into it and look at the 24/7 Sports Composite, he comes in at the number 6 player in 2024, the number 3 wide receiver, and the number 2 player in the state of Alabama. And it's important to remember this. Ryan Williams was a part of the class of 2025, and he reclassified to 2024. This was an individual that was a top 3 player in the class of 2025, and when he reclassified, it was obvious how much the guys who do the national rankings think of his ability. He is a top 10 player universally, pretty much any recruiting site you look, and per the composite, a top 10 player. This is a huge win. Whenever you're asking what can Ryan Williams do, that's a long list. He is explosive with the ball in his hands. He's able to generate separation from the beginning of the route, but certainly throughout the route, and he is an offensive weapon that every offense in college football would love to have. There's no doubt that every offense in the nation would be better off with a Ryan Williams on it. It's the reason why when you look at the teams that were trying to get him, you've got major brands. It makes sense. He is that good. For you to be in the class of 2025 and reclassify and maintain 5-star ranking is incredible. To maintain top 10 status and then even have conversations around, are you the number 1 wide receiver in the class? That's incredible. And then he showed out at the All-American game, proving he is every bit deserving of his ranking. So for Alabama, you get a dangerous offensive weapon that has got elite speed, he has track speed, and when he gets the ball, big things happen. But why is this so big for the Crimson Tide outside of what he can provide on the field? Well, first and foremost, I think this goes a long way in answering a major question a lot of people had about this new staff. Can you recruit? And I want to lay the foundation for this because Ryan Williams stated previously that Nick Saban was huge in his recruiting process, but it wasn't just Nick Saban. You had Coach Wiggins, who's no longer at Alabama. You had Coach Robinson, who's no longer at Alabama. So for Ryan Williams and his family, it was a totally new process. Yes, you knew about the reputation of Coach DeBoer, about Coach Grubb and Coach Shepard, but you didn't actually get the opportunity to meet them and build relationships. In fact, when we look across the board, he had pre-existing relationships with Auburn that predated the ones that exist now with this staff. He had pre-existing relationships at A&M thanks to Coach Holloman Wiggins, but it's Alabama that gets this win, and in my opinion, that's huge because so many people have asked, can the staff recruit? And the answer thus far, though early, is yes. They just went to battle for one of the best players in the class of 2024, a top 10 player in all of high school football in a time where they only had a month to build a relationship with him. Auburn has built a long-standing relationship with him, and his dad played for Auburn, and yes, he was previously committed to Alabama, but that's when Nick Saban was there. That's when T-Rob was there. That's when Holloman Wiggins was there. None of those guys were there anymore. So for you to get this big win, for him to cancel the visit to Texas, for him to commit to Alabama over Auburn, even though he just started fostering these relationships with the Alabama coaching staff, I think it proves a point that this is a coaching staff that's going to be capable of recruiting and doing great things because they're able to cultivate relationships successfully and quickly. You saw the video of Ryan Williams visiting Alabama, and it looked like he and his family were having a great time with Coach Shepard. Then you hear them talk about Coach Grubb, Coach DeBoer, saying that they're incredibly authentic, incredibly smart people, and that's huge in recruiting. Recruiting is about building relationships, and if you're able to cultivate positive relationships based off of your authenticity, that's massive. Alabama just had a massive win. There is no understating this, and it begins a new era, as Ryan Williams dubbed on Twitter the DeBoer era. And there's going to be a lot of conversations, no doubt about it. Whenever Nick Saban got to Alabama, he was able to land Julio Jones, though they had more time to work with than did Coach DeBoer and company. They were able to do this really quickly, and I cannot understate how impressive it is. It is wild what they were able to do, and I think it should give Alabama fans everywhere reason to celebrate. But there are going to be natural conversations and comparisons about how this could be for Coach DeBoer what Julio was for Coach Saban. But he is to Coach DeBoer what Ryan Williams is to Coach DeBoer, because he is going to go out and carve his own legacy. Ryan Williams is an incredibly big piece, not only to the 2024 class, but onward. Because what this does is grant this staff legitimacy. If you had questions, can they recruit? You may still have those questions, but you must admit what they just did winning this battle was incredibly impressive whenever there was so much turnover. Whenever there were pre-existing relationships in other buildings, and yet it's the Crimson Tide that prevails. And I think if you're an Alabama fan, it's part of the reason why you're so happy. Not to speak of how incredibly gifted he is, not to speak of what this means, but going forward, you have to imagine other recruits are going to be interested. What was the pitch? What did they say for them to be able to win his commitment back after he decommitted? And I think this will be big not only for Alabama in 2024, but recruiting in the class of 2025. But of course, I can't wait to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.